Hi Year 12, hope you're all okay and you all had a nice Easter break. I'm back to doing the videos. This is the video that I should have uploaded with the task for yesterday, the evaluation of the cognitive explanations for depression. However, I did it at home and had a problem and it wouldn't upload, so I'm doing it again now. Fingers crossed it'll upload. So if you've already started that task, just check your answers against this video. If not, use this video to help you with that task as well. Okay, so I've got the slide in front of me. It's slide 5 on the PowerPoint. And I'm just going to go through each colour and I'm going to explain it, whether it's positive or negative, and label it for you. Please just make the notes in line with my video explanation, and then the label, and then you can write it up following this video. So the first one, the green one in the corner. Grazioli and Terry in 2000 assessed 65 pregnant women for faulty cognitions before and after birth. They found that women with irrational beliefs before birth were more likely to suffer from postnatal depression after birth. So here's clear support and evidence, because any women who were having irrational thoughts or beliefs before they gave birth, so things like you're not going to be a good mother, they won't be able to cope, the baby might not grow up to be successful, all of those things that pregnant women worry about. Any women who are having a high level or a high number of those beliefs were more likely to get postnatal depression. Now I think this particular piece of research is quite interesting, because we tend to think of postnatal depression as a biological thing, because your hormones are everywhere once you've had a baby, and that leads to depression. And while there is a definite, you can't deny that, there's got to be a biological source to that type of depression. However, the fact that they're irrational beliefs and a cognitive factor influences that is quite interesting. So that's clear support and evidence, and I'm going to call that postnatal depression as the label. Okay, so that's the first one. The next one is the yellow one, moving across. Clark and Beck reviewed all of the research investigating the impact of cognitions and concluded that there was strong support for the claim that cognitive thought came before the depressive symptoms. Now, a problem with cognitive explanations of depression is you don't know whether the cognitive factors, the negative thoughts and the irrational beliefs, are a cause or an effect of the depression. So do you get the depression and it leads to the negative thought, or do you have the negative thought and that leads to the depression? It's really difficult to tell. The only way you could tell is if you took participants and tracked their negative thoughts before the onset or the start of the depression. Now, this particular research it's a meta-analysis of all of the work, and it's a clear sort of defence against the argument that the negative thought might be an effect of depression rather than a cause of it. So I'm going to say that's a smiley face. It's a support and AO3 point. And I'm going to call the label meta-analysis, and then in brackets before onset, to show that the negative thoughts come before the onset of the depression. Remember, if you don't like any of my labels, you feel free to use your own. Next one. Cognitive approaches or explanations of depression have been... Oh, sorry, this just gone off. Cognitive approaches to depression have been used to develop some very effective treatments called CBT. These therapies focus on identifying and challenge the irrational beliefs, which have been shown to have a long-lasting and positive impact on people with depression. CBT, we'll have come across that before, and we'll come across it a lot throughout the 2-year programme of A-level psychology. Cognitive behavioural therapy is one of the most powerful therapies that we have in psychology today. It's widely regarded as the most diverse and powerful treatment that you can offer for a range of different problems. If you were to go to the doctors, for some kind of support with any kind of psychological illness or mental health problem at the moment, you would probably be offered some form of CBT. So CBT is, it's got huge applications. It's very diverse. You can use it for anger management. You can use it for eating disorders. You could use it for depression. You can use it for phobias. You can use CBT for so many different problems. And it came from the cognitive approach. And it's actually very, very, very powerful with depression. The next LO that we look at is looking at the cognitive approach to treating depression. But the treatment only came from this explanation. So smiley face, and I'm just going to label this CBT, and I'm going to put in brackets powerful. As you learn more about CBT, you'll understand why it's so powerful, but basically it's cognitive and behavioural. It's changing the thoughts and giving you practical strategies and skills to implement and improve your quality of life. So not only is it about changing your thought process, it's also about it gives you practical strategies and techniques that you can use in everyday life. So it's very, very good therapy, but it came from the cognitive approach, so that's a clear strength. The next one, moving down, the lilac one. Some psychologists claim that these explanations do not explain the cause of depression and only the symptoms. The theories do not tell us where the irrational thoughts or beliefs come from. So this is the cause and effect problem that I was just explaining when I was looking at the yellow one from Clark and Beck. So I'm going to link that lilac one to that yellow one, and I'm going to put the lilac one before the yellow one, and I'm just going to label that as a negative, so sad face, and I'm going to label that cause, effect, no origin. Okay, so what I mean by that when I'm looking back through my notes is a problem with this approach to explaining depression is it doesn't explain whether the irrational thoughts and negative beliefs are a cause or the effect of the depression, and it doesn't explain where they came from. What is the origin? Why does one person have negative thoughts and irrational beliefs and one person doesn't? Where do they come from in the first place? It doesn't tell us anything about that. However, you would then counter-argue that with the yellow one, which is a positive, to say that their meta-analysis from Clark and Beck showed that the negative thoughts came before the start of depression, which would lead you to conclude that they must be a cause of it and not an effect. Okay, moving on, we've got 4 more to go. Yeah, 4 more to go. The orange one in the middle. Depression is an extremely complex psychological illness with a range of different symptoms. For example, some depressed patients suffer from hallucinations and extreme anger. Cognitive explanations struggle to explain this. Remember when you did the LO, looking at the clinical characteristics of depression and the 3 categories, cognitive, emotional and behavioural? The cognitive approach to explaining depression can only really help us understand the cognitive symptoms. It can't tell us anything about why would somebody become so angry if they're depressed. Where does that emotional element come from? So it's a very, very complex illness, and although this explanation explains some of the symptoms, it doesn't help us understand all of them. So that's a clear negative. So I'm going to label that as a negative, and I'm going to put just complex symptoms. And then just to give me a prompt to give an example in an answer about this, I'm going to just put anger, extreme anger, as a prompt to say, how does the cognitive approach help us to understand where the extreme anger lots of depressed people comes from? Okay. The next one, the pink one, there is definite support for Ellis's idea that an activating event causes depression, and this has been called reactive depression. For lots of people, they get depression because of something that has happened to them. They got divorced, somebody died, they lost their job, they left home, they were made redundant, they got into a lot of debt, they had a gambling problem. For lots of people, there are clear activating events. So we have lots of sort of, not anecdotal evidence, but when you talk to a huge number of patients who get depression, they do have they can actually say, this happened, there was a trigger in my life that led to this depression. So therefore, that clearly, is support for Ellis's theory of the ABC model. However, on the other hand, there are also a lot of people who've got no idea why they're depressed. They wake up, they feel low, their mood has changed, that gradually, over time becomes worse and worse and worse, and they are depressed, but there's no real reason why. Nothing, significantly negative has happened in their life to cause them to develop that depression. So I'm going to put that as amber. So I'm going to put a straight face, not a smile or a sad face, and I'm just going to call that reactive depression. So lots of people have reactive depression, and that means there is a clear reason why they've got that depression, but lots of people don't. So it's both for and against. Okay, 2 more to go on the bottom. Studies such as Lipsky et al. This is there's one that's quite light green and then the one next to it's sage green. So I'm doing the light green one first. Studies such as Lipsky et al. 1980 have found that challenging irrational beliefs can significantly reduce depressive symptoms. So if you've got somebody who has got depression and you're talking to them as a therapist and you ask them about their depression and what they're thinking, and they might give you some irrational beliefs like nobody in the world likes them. They've got no one in the world who thinks they're good at anything. You know, they've got no friends, nothing. And then you set them a task that will challenge that belief. So for the next 7 days, every time somebody gives you a compliment or says something nice to you, or you do something well, I want you to record it in this diary. If you were to do that to a client, you can significantly improve their symptoms. They feel less sad. Now, this shows us that the irrational belief must have been at the heart of it. If they have irrational beliefs and then you fix those irrational beliefs, or you cause them to rethink those irrational beliefs, and then they feel better, then that tells us that possibly was a cause of it. So that is a smiley face, that's support and evidence, and the label for that I'm going to have challenging irrational beliefs. Challenging irrational beliefs, and then I'm going to put a little arrow or in brackets helps. Yeah, to trigger me to do that. And then the last one, not all irrational beliefs are irrational. Some may actually be rational. For example, Ally and Abramson found that depressive people are not really depressed, they're realists, and they give more accurate explanations of what caused an event. They called this the sadder but wider effect. So let's say the reason you failed an exam is because you can't do it. Let's just say that's actually realistic. That's not you being negative. You've got a real accurate perception of your ability, and you failed that maths exam or that challenging chemistry exam or something like that because it's too hard for you and you're not good enough to do it. Now, although that might seem quite negative, it's actually realistic. It's accurate rather than being inaccurate and negative. So that is a weakness. And I'm going to label that as sadder but wiser. Right, so remember, when you are putting these together, you start with your most positive and then move over to through the amber ones, the positive and negative ones, and finish with the negative. The only two that I would link are the lilac and the yellow. So I will put the lilac first. I would put the lilac first as a negative, and then I will counter-argue it with the yellow. Okay, hope that all makes sense. Any questions, just ask, but I'd like you to copy them all up in your book with the right labels. Thank you.